Chapter 4 of Glass Houses. She woke up slowly, the ringing telephone fitting into her dream, a sinister alarm. She understood the meaning of the rings, but was not inclined to move towards them. They were finally silenced, but she was pulled again out of sleep when Marcia leaned over her. "It's for you, honey." She was unable to articulate how she felt, but Marcia understood. Marcia was an angel. Good old Marcia. "Can she call you back?" Again, Marilyn dropped off, but was dragged out of it. She'd had time to dream something about a boat ride, but she knew it was still the same call. "He says it's important," said Marcia. "It's Jason." She took the phone, but didn't put it to her ear right away. She needed to prepare herself first. She'd not planned to fall asleep during this preparation, but she felt guilty enough when Marcia shook her and put the phone next to her ear that she made a real effort to understand what was troubling Jace. "Marilyn?" he was saying. "Marilyn, are you there?" "Yes." It was the first sound of the morning, and it came out different than she had planned. "I want to speak to Marilyn Potter." "Oh, this is she." "Is that you, Marilyn? What the hell is going on over there? What are you doing?" "What's the matter, Jason?" "Look here, my copy of the transcript is missing." "Don't worry." "What?" "I said, don't worry, I've got it. Right here." "You've got it? What the hell are you doing with it? Marilyn, don't you remember? You don't even work here anymore. What the hell are you doing with my transcript?" But the explanation seemed too difficult. "Don't worry, I've got it. I'll bring it in." "Right away. Can you get it here right away? I need it." "Right away, Jason." "I need it in 10 minutes, Marilyn." "Coming up." "I mean it. You've got to get off the phone first." "What did you say?" "You've got to get off the phone so I can bring it to you." "Make that double quick, can you?" "Sure." She let her eyes roam around the room before she tried to move her head. Yesterday had been a very bad day, all right. Everything had gone wrong yesterday. If she had only had the sense to stay in bed yesterday, how much better things would be right now. Wouldn't it be wise to take heed, to learn a lesson from that? She felt a growing conviction that today was going to be that kind of day too. 2 of them. Shouldn't she just avert this one? Stay in bed all day and approach the whole thing tomorrow? Her clothes were scattered around the room as if they'd been thrown. Her dress was hanging on a lampshade. Surely she hadn't put it there. It had been thrown there. Her muddy stockings drooped from the bookcase. What was all that fuss in the living room? She couldn't see the whole couch through her door, but there was some blonde hair peeping out of a fluffy comforter. Buzz Ranky? The foot sticking out still had a shoe on it. That was probably good. It probably meant he hadn't taken any of his clothes off. She stuck her hand inside her panties but could find no extra dampness, no heat. Good. She had enough troubles without having added a new lover to her life. Her relationship with Buzz Ranky had been strictly pals, and she could always count on him. How sad it would be not to have a single man in the world she could count on. Her back was hurting because her bra was still on. She squirmed around to undo it without lifting her head. Plenty of time for that later. Showers of little pains of relief circled her as she pulled the wretched thing loose. It had been like a weight clamping her. It had been partly the bra that made the day look so bad. Well, she said out loud and sat up. The blow to her head was sickening. Jesus. But now it was done, and lying back down wouldn't fix it. She limped out to the kitchen and put some water on to boil in a pan. Are you okay, honey? That was Marcia. Good old Marcia. Marcia didn't have hangovers for the simple reason that Marcia didn't drink. Marcia's avoidance of drink made her life a lot simpler. Pat sat at the kitchen table, her hair in rollers, her nails drying. Who's the dude on the couch? She asked. I think it's Buzz Ranky. I think we got drunk together last night. Ranky? She gathered the paper towels under her fingers, startled, holding her hands arched so the towels wouldn't touch her nails. Buzz? Ranky? The reporter? You brought him here? I think so. Marilyn was miserable. She thinks, Christ Jesus, she brought him here. Pat was swooping around the kitchen, gathering peels and plates, all the time holding her nails skillfully away from them. She's right, Marilyn, said Marcia, suddenly spurred into action too. You could have given us a little warning. Their voices were low, but very intense, and it was the intensity that hurt Marilyn's head. Don't worry, she said. He won't wake up for hours. I think we were pretty late coming in. Christ Jesus, Marilyn. Teeth and tongue brushed, her makeup on, and her hair combed out. Marilyn slipped into her clothes and grabbed her purse as her phone began to ring again. But a quick check inside stopped her cold. Do you want me to get that, honey? It was ringing for the third time. No, just let it ring. Can you stand it? She was the one who couldn't stand it. Each ring cut into her poor head like a scream, but she couldn't deal with Jason right that moment. The transcript was not in her purse. She couldn't deal with Jason until she'd located the transcript. Marcia helped her search. Pat sat it out in the kitchen, her hair soft and limp from having taken her rollers down early. The phone rang 16 times. 5 minutes later, it began again and rang an even 30 rings. Couldn't he tell that this kind of harassment was only slowing her down? Wouldn't he have been wiser to just let her look for it in peace? She retraced her steps around the apartment, leaving Buzz Ranky until the last. The fluffy comforter was bundled around his body. The only parts of him that protruded were a foot with his shoe still on it, and a part of his head. In sleep, his face had an angelic expression. In sleep, he looked like a child. She tried to remember what had happened last night. She could recall riding from one place to another in his sporty little car. It seemed to her that they had gone mainly to bars. She remembered walking into the first one, shoeless, giggling, and knowing that they looked like privileged people and that no one would think her oddness meant there was something wrong. She thought she remembered dancing at some point. She had just a flash of a vision of herself laughing, hanging onto a light post with both arms while someone tried to pry her loose. Jesus! She leaned over him and put her hand softly on the comforter. It was puffy and light, and he didn't seem to feel it pressing him down. What had they said to each other? Did she like him? She tried to sense whether that was that easy intimacy inside her that went with having had a good time, but she was too hungover to know what her feelings were. Another vision, brief and dark, flashed into her mind and immediately out again. It was herself, crying inconsolably. Her arms were stretched across the table in a booth, in a bar, and Buzz, was it Buzz, was holding both her hands. Did that happen? She didn't know. It didn't seem real, thank God. Maybe it was only a nightmare she had had once she got to bed. Or maybe, if it had happened, it maybe hadn't been so bad as all that. But even so, she couldn't bring herself to wake him up. She'd gotten drunk enough to erase the evening entirely from her memory. She had never been drunk like that before. Not like that. Lord knows what she might have said or done. Whatever it was bound to have been bad. But the telephone began ringing again. This was Jason saying she simply had placed something in there where they could not stop the ringing, and she couldn't really leave without looking under him for the envelope. So she pulled the cover back gently and took a peek. His eyes were instantly open. "Good morning," he said. "God, what a head I've got on me." "Me too," she said. "Feels like the entire Chinese army has marched across my tongue." "I'm sorry. Must smell like it too. Don't get too close." She leaned back, not from any smell. She couldn't smell anything anyway, but out of some cooperative center of her brain. "On the other hand," he said, "here, smell." And he drew her close to him, his hands on her shoulders. Then he kissed her very gently on the mouth and released her again. Quickly, she tried to think if that felt familiar, but for all she could know, it was his usual wistful effort to snatch a contact with her. "Do I feel anything?" But she was too hungover to assess her responses. "Marcia," she said, "I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Buzz Ranke." Marcia, who had been more or less hanging in the doorway, now stepped into the living room. Marilyn noticed she had managed to get her eye makeup on. "Yikes," he said as he sat up. "The head. You wouldn't happen to have any coffee around here?" "Never mind answering that. It was a rhetorical question. The reason I asked it was that I can smell coffee, and I was hoping to shame somebody into offering me a cup." "Would you like a cup of coffee?" said Marcia. Her eyes were bright and pleasant. Marilyn could see she'd already been forgiven. "Yes, I would like a cup of coffee, and I thank you very much." Marilyn glanced quickly at the couch as he left it, but there was no envelope. "Actually," she said, "I'm kind of in a hurry. You haven't happened to see a manila envelope, have you? About this size?" "Not recently," he said. "I mean, you didn't see me lay it down somewhere last night or anything, did you? Or lose it out of my purse?" She was unable to keep the emotion out of her voice. His eyes sharpened in sudden interest. Good. He had clearly not been prepared for the possibility that anything in her purse would turn out to be interesting. She felt certain all of a sudden that he hadn't seen the transcript, and with that certainty came an intense relief that betrayed how worried she had really been. After all, he was a reporter and used to snooping. She felt saved from a terrible danger, and with that release felt the usual grateful resolve never to put herself in such a perilous position again. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she said. "Jason's aunt is taking a creative writing class, and she wrote this sort of prose poem thing, and he didn't have time to read it, and he gave it to me, and I was supposed to go over it last night to see what it was about so he could cover for himself when she came, and she's in his office right now, and he's frantic. She wants him to use his influence to get it published, and next she's planning to write a play in 5 acts about her life story." As she watched, the interest faded from Buzz's eyes. "Maybe you could help, Buzz. After all, you're in the publishing business. I'll bet you could give her all kinds of good advice." That clinched it. Now, if she could retrace her steps from last night, she would check out his car first thing, and the bars, Jody's, where else, and find some excuse to get back down into Olivia's basement. It had to be someplace, and the chances were that wherever it was still safe from prying eyes, still unmolested. If she found it, she promised herself she would quit doing any sort of top secret work. She could maybe become a girl Friday in a one-man office or field secretary to an anthropologist. It must have dropped out of my purse somewhere, she said. Think of something, Buzz. You hung on to that purse like it had your life savings in it, he said. You wouldn't even put it down to dance with me. Oh, you wrapped a strap around your neck. Damnedest thing I ever saw. Oh, by the way, do you want me to answer the phone for you? No, she said, they'll get it in a minute. Just give me time to get out the door. Wait, he said as she turned to leave. You have to go? When do I see you? I have to give you that necklace. Jesus. Buzz, I think you should know that I'm not going to be able to do that. I know I'm not. That's okay, that's okay. Dinner tonight? I don't know. Well, lunch on Sunday for sure. He ran his fingers lightly over the remnants of the necklace which lay on the coffee table. She'd almost forgotten about it. It was lucky he had touched it, or Pat would have thrown it out when she cleaned the room. She brushed it into a drawer, mindless of the dirt that sifted down from it into her clothes. I'm off, she said. See you Sunday. Until then, he said. Until then, my love.